Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex, and my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. To all those celebrating Christmas, it's Christmas Eve today. Tomorrow, Christmas Day. Hope you guys have a fantastic time with family. Yesterday, I was in New York City. I was hopping on the train going to see my family. Halfway there, and my sister calls me and says she has COVID. So I had to hop off the train in Hastings and turn right back around to go back to the city. So that's how my Christmas is going. Hopefully, yours is going a lot better than that, with family, spending time, and everyone's healthy and doing well. That's why I'm here recording a video for you guys today, because I have time. So I guess that's a positive for you. But today we want to talk about some interesting reports coming out regarding Daniel Jones and Adam Schefter from ESPN saying that the Giants are still very much committed to Daniel Jones. And how some people are coming out, like Lawrence Tynes came out and said he actually prefers to see Kevin Abrams get the GM job, and the reason behind it is rather interesting. So we want to discuss that, our thoughts and reactions towards Daniel Jones kind of still having the faith of the Giants brass and what that means, because right now, to me, it doesn't really mean much until the new GM comes in and says, this is what I want to do. But if they're saying and they're confident with the faith in him, it might suggest that an internal hire is probably the direction they may go. Before we dive into this stuff, Anthony, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing all right. Of course, Merry Christmas to everybody celebrating, and of course, I hope that anyone that's dealing with COVID, that you get healthy and that it doesn't, ruin your Christmas, because I know that's happening to a lot of people. Unfortunately, one of my friends dealing with COVID, not able to spend Christmas with their family. Really, really crappy situation going on around in the world. But let's talk about New York Giants, something a little bit more positive, something to get our minds off of all of that. Jake Fromm is starting on Sunday. That I'm excited about. But with Daniel Jones, this is interesting to me because we're talking about the future of this team. So we're really excited to watch Jake Fromm play on Sunday, because we're like, well, maybe he can be the backup in the future. He can be a long-term backup. But who's he backing up? That's the big question surrounding the New York Giants right now. Well, I just read a report on Twitter from an article that apparently around the league, all the other teams are saying that the Giants need a quarterback in the 2022 offseason. That's something that's going on. League executives, scouts, everyone around the league is assuming that the Giants are going to go for a quarterback. But then we're getting these reports that the Giants are not going to look at the quarterback position. The Giants don't feel that way. The entire league feels that way, but the Giants feel like they are good with Daniel Jones. So either everyone else in the league is stupid, or the Giants are the one stupid organization. What do you guys think? I'm going to put my money on the Giants being the stupid organization here, being the ones that are going to mishandle this whole thing. And of course, if they are planning on keeping Daniel Jones as a starting quarterback in 2022, that does say one thing to me, Alex, and you said it. They're looking to make an internal hiring at the general manager position. Someone who is already on board with Daniel Jones, someone who's already on board with Joe Judge, already on board with Saquon Barkley, and all the other players on this putrid New York Giants roster. That's what it tells me. And it seems like a couple former players, Lawrence Tynes, like they're campaigning for Kevin Abrams because they know something that we don't. That's my conspiracy. They know something that we don't. They know that Dave Gettleman's going to retire. Kevin Abrams is going to be promoted, and they're trying to soften the blow to the fan base, make the fan base be a little bit happy about it. Lawrence Tynes' reasoning was stupid, surface level, shallow. I love Lawrence Tynes. He is a New York Giants legend. I can never thank him enough for kicking us to 2 Super Bowls. However, I completely disagree with him on this, and I think that his reasoning is irrational. So I'm excited to discuss this with you, Alex. I know I said this was going to be a little bit more positive. It's definitely more positive than what I opened up with, but these conversations are not the most positive because they make our New York Giants look maybe like not the smartest team in the league. And I think that we all know that they're pretty close to the bottom of the smartest. So I don't know. Hopefully this isn't true, all of this, but I'm curious to hear what you think, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, look, Lawrence Tynes has been pretty objective since he started kind of becoming a more influential media member in the Giants' Twitter sphere. But I'll say this, for all we know, maybe he's good buddies with Kevin Abrams. Maybe that's his source for things. Maybe Kevin Abrams reached out to him and said, hey, man, like, why don't you, I want to be GM, like, put out some good word for me, put out some good vibes for me in the media. Like, who knows? Anything could happen. But the reality is his logic behind it was more or less, I think that Kevin Abrams should get the job because he never got the opportunity. He was supposed to get the gig instead of Dave Gettleman. He was next in line, right? He was the next guy in line to take over after Dave Gettleman. He got shafted by John Mara, and they brought in this 70-year-old dinosaur to come in and try and fix things after multiple players came out and said he's a snake. So this is really how it unfolded, and Kevin Abrams kind of got overlooked, and Lawrence Tynes thinks that he is deserving of an opportunity. Now, I'll say this. Kevin Abrams has done what he's told. He is a pawn in the scheme of Mara and Dave Gettleman, right? He doesn't have any real impact here. Like, I think maybe he has some say. He has like they're going to listen to his opinion, but at the end of the day, we don't know how impactful he was in drafting Saquon Barkley or Daniel Jones. We don't know what he had to say. He's more of the primary money guy. He makes the money work. Now we know the cap space is extremely flexible, and the Giants and Dave Gettleman's like, I want to go get this guy, I want to go get that guy. Kevin Abrams has managed to fit it under the salary cap. They're positive right now. Go look at a couple teams like the Saints and Green Bay Packers. They're $30+ million in the negative. So, and they'll find ways to open up money. Like they'll always find ways to restructure and do things. But at the end of the day, the Giants, looking at Kevin Abrams, like they have money to spend. They'll find ways to open it up. So don't worry about that as much. But Kevin Abrams has now been a part of three new head coaches, right? So you had Ben McAdoo, Pat Shermer, and Joe Judge. All of them so far have failed, right? So he's been a part of the last decade of poor Giants football, and I can't sit here and say that he can't go like kind of under the radar here. Like he's got to be held accountable for the disaster this team is too. Everybody in the front office has to be taking some of that blame. Kevin Abrams can't be absolved just because he's playing second fiddle to Dave Gettleman. He's just the money guy. He's been with the team for 25 years. There's no doubt in my mind he's had a say in some of these things. Now he's had experience with the team when they won Super Bowls, but clearly that experience when he won Super Bowls has not translated to winning football down the line. So what has he really learned? How has he really helped this team? None of us really know, right? So I'm not going to sit here and tell you Kevin Abrams is an absolute shit GM candidate because I don't know. Neither do you, for that matter. So if you think that Kevin Abrams is going to be bad or whatever he might be, we're really just talking out of our ass. But at the end of the day, that doesn't mean I want Kevin Abrams. I would prefer to go get a dream candidate like Ed Dodds if he was willing to come here and we had 9 draft picks and we said, hey, you guys stick with Joe Judge for 1 year. He's a really good scout. Look at our draft picks from the last 2 years. They've been pretty good. We want you to work in cohesion with him. It doesn't work out. Let's say it doesn't work out. You have full autonomy to fire him and go and get your new guy. Go and get whatever you want. Overhaul the coaching staff. That's what we're giving you. We're giving you a year to settle in, learn the system. It's really like a test year with Joe Judge, and then you can really take over in full. Now, I don't know if John Mara wants to give up that much power. That's my biggest concern with this entire organization. I don't know if John Mara is willing to give as much power as necessary to a GM like Ed Dodds, who's coming off a season right now that he had 7 players make the Pro Bowl, right? He's obviously kind of playing second fiddle here to, I'm not second fiddle, but he's in conjunction with Frank Reich and just a fantastic overall coaching staff and a fantastic overall front office. But Anthony, when you're looking at the Giants right now, like the Kevin Abrams argument, I don't know if I trust him as much as a talent evaluator as I do with the money side of things. And the money side of things has still been kind of messy. I don't really we just had to restructure contracts for Riley Dixon and Kyle Rudolph, 2 guys who are going to be cut. I don't know if I totally agree with everything he's done in that side of things too. So when you're looking at this, like how are you kind of observing Kevin Abrams and saying, why does he not deserve to be GM?
I think there's plenty of reasons why he doesn't deserve to be GM. I think that everyone involved with the mess of the Giants organization for the last decade should be on their way out. And that's pretty plain and simple, right? Like the Giants have been bad for a decade. Ever since they let Tom Coughlin go, it's been downhill, like down a very steep hill. And there's been no way of getting up that hill again. And I think the only way that you can get back up that hill is if you clean house. You get rid of all these guys in the front office. You just redo this whole thing. That's what I personally think needs to happen. That's the number one reason why I don't want Kevin Abrams. And it doesn't even have anything to do with Kevin Abrams. That has everything to do with the fact that I just want something outside of this organization. That's not an indictment on Kevin Abrams. I just personally feel like the New York Giants need to go in a brand new direction. Not a somewhat new direction, but a brand new direction. Now, Lawrence Tynes is saying basically his main argument for Kevin Abrams as general manager, he's been here a long time. Well, the Giants have been bad for a long time, as we just said. So that's kind of like a bad argument, in my opinion. I don't think that Kevin Abrams being with the Giants, being with the organization for a long time, is any reason to promote him. Why was Dave Gettleman hired as the New York Giants or general manager? Because he was with the Giants for a long time. Yes, he left for a little while, went to Carolina, went here, but he was with the Giants for a long time, and his roots were with the New York Giants. That's why he got the hiring. That's why I scream nepotism. If the Giants go ahead with Kevin Abrams, I'll scream nepotism because I think it's nepotism. This is not a family business. And I even saw a report today that John Mara is leaning towards doing a family-style business structure and promoting Kevin Abrams. It's not family. This is not right. You cannot be treating this like a family business because this is a multi-billion-dollar sports entity. You cannot treat this like a family business. That is nepotism, because you can't just be hiring your buddies. All right. There's so many people's lives affected by this decision of John Mara, who he goes with. And if he's basing this decision on who he likes the best, not who he thinks will do the best job, then he's really just making everyone else's life a mess. All of the players, all of the coaches. He's hurting so many people by just continuing to hire his friends or his family members. And that's not the way it should be. I really strongly stand against John Mara and his philosophy in building this New York Giants front office and the way that he likes to make his friends own these positions of power for the Giants. I think it's wrong. I condemn it. I don't like it. And again, circling back to Lawrence Tynes, much respect and love for the guy, but I flat out disagree with him for this. I just don't see the reasoning. Alex, you even tried to mention this a few weeks ago. You were mentioning, well, what if they go with Kevin Abrams? And I've always been really against Kevin Abrams because I know the cap is flexible, and he's gotten a lot of guys underneath the cap space. He got Kenny Galladay, Blake Martinez, James Bradbury, Logan Ryan. He got all of these guys underneath the salary cap somehow. But we have $4.5 million to spend this upcoming offseason. That's not enough to fill in an entire draft class. And here's my thing, right? Main argument against Kevin Abrams. This is the number one thing, because this is the main argument that Lawrence Tynes made, is that you give him a year. If you don't like it, you can just fire him. I'm not handing him a year to screw up this team, especially not this year when the New York Giants have 2 first-round picks. The Giants have 2 first-round draft picks. When was the last time that happened? That is so important. That is the most important argument in this whole conversation for whichever general manager candidate they go with. 2 first-round picks. That's extremely rare, and it's extremely valuable. There's so much value to be extracted from 2 first-round picks. I'm not letting a guy who we're planning on firing in a year if it goes south after 1 year make those selections. That cannot happen. That is a horrible, horrible idea. Whoever makes those 2 first-round picks has to be tied to those 2 first-round picks for the next 5 to 10 years. That's how I see it. You got to get this hiring right. You can't just have a stopgap general manager to make 2 first-round picks and then dip on out of here, because those can be 2 crappy picks. And what can 2 crappy picks in the first round do? They could set your team back another 5 years. And the Giants have already been set back 5 years by Dave Gettleman. So number one argument against going with a hiring of Kevin Abrams, because everyone thinks, oh, you could just go with him for a year. If it doesn't work out, go with a new guy, get a new coach, do everything over again. You can't do that with the 2 first-round picks. They're too valuable, too important. That's why I want a really good personnel evaluator, a talent evaluator. I know everybody loves Ed Dodds. I love Ed Dodds. Ed Dodds is a great talent evaluator. He knows how to draft. 2 first-round picks, he will draft 2 excellent players. Will Kevin Abrams scout 2 excellent players and draft them in the first round? I have no idea, and I do not trust him to do that because he has zero background with something like that. He's been a money guy strictly for years. I don't trust him to go out there and make those 2 first-round picks efficiently and get the best players out of them. So that's my number one reason for not wanting Kevin Abrams. I'm totally against it. I want a talent evaluator in that position.
Right, and let me give you an analogy that kind of gives us a good kind of, I guess, breakdown of why this would be a mistake. Right, if I had a car and I popped the tire, Dave Gettleman's the tire, he's popped, he's done, and I put on a spare tire, and I'm thinking to myself, that spare tire may pop, but it also may hold up, right? I would rather just have a brand new shiny tire that I trust, right? Kevin Abrams is the spare tire. He's the spare tire. You don't know. It's a weak tire. That's why it's a spare. You know what I mean? It's the tire with the black hubcap, and you're like, I don't know if that thing's going to hold up. This car's a little too big for that spare tire, you know? I'd rather go out and get a nice Goodwill tire with treads and that's going to churn through snow and shit and rocks, you know, because that's the type of GM that I want. I want a hardcore GM who's going to come in here that I trust. I trust that tire. I trust that GM. I don't trust the little hubcap, the little black hubcap tire that is Kevin Abrams. I don't trust that. And maybe he holds up and he gets me to my destination. Maybe. But the logic is flawed because you're in the back of your mind, you're like, this thing may not hold up. And that's not the type of tire that I want. I think that's the best way to put it, Anthony. Do you think that's a decent analogy for the situation that we're kind of looking at?
Yeah, it's a really colorful one and a really interesting one, but I do think it's an accurate analogy.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's the reality is like he's a stopgap. That's the way that everyone's approaching this. He's a stopgap. If him and Joe Judge fail, you're replacing both of them after 1 year. That's the logic you're
Yeah,
going into a season with. You can't have that logic to be a good team.
I agree. You can't have that logic. And I'll also say stopgaps are usually used for quarterbacks, right? Like for the Giants, if they were to go with a stopgap quarterback, it would make
So
sense,
different.
right? Because it's completely different. They would go with a stopgap quarterback because they want to find a way to
You have a
extend the
plan. You have a
year.
plan.
You have a
The
plan. You want
GM
to go
has a
into
plan.
2023. You want to go 2023 and get the quarterback because the quarterback you want is not out in 2022. So you want to wait a year for 2023. Well, for the Giants, the general manager that they should want is out right now. He's here. He's available. And he's not going to be available much longer. If Ed Dodds is the number one GM candidate this offseason, he's going to get hired by some team. Some team is going to fire their general manager and hire Ed Dodds. That's going to happen. And then the Giants, a year later, are going to have a crappy group of general manager candidates. They're going to be frustrated. They're going to say, damn, we should have done this a year sooner. We made a mistake. You can't do stopgap general managers. It's not a thing. It's not even possible. And you know what? Stopgaps just don't work. Look at the Arizona Cardinals. They said, screw that. We're not going with a stopgap. We drafted Josh Rosen. Get him out of here. Let's get Kyler Murray. Now they're one of the best teams in the NFL. The age of stopgaps in the NFL is dying. It does not exist anymore. There's no need to have stopgaps. If you don't like the decision you made, just redo it the following year. And honestly, that's really the mentality that you should have. You either redo it the following year, you don't need a stopgap player or general manager, or you just make the decision that you want to make in the moment, the good one for the long-term future. Kevin Abrams is not the best decision for the long-term future, and he, like I said, he is not the best man to be making 2 first-round selections in April. That is the main thing for me. That is so important for the Giants to get those 2 picks right.
Absolutely. I mean, look, those two picks are probably the most important, right? Those two picks have to be hit on because ultimately you have to be like looking at this draft as the one that's going to save things, right? You have to be able to save this draft. Otherwise, things are going to be a mess. It's going to be a mess if you don't hit on these 2 first round picks. And a lot of people are arguing, is it going to be a offensive lineman? Is it going to be a pass rusher? A lot of people want them to draft 2 offensive linemen in the first round. And think about how the detriment to this team and how bad it is that we have to spend 2 first round picks on offensive linemen. That is not a sustainable practice. And most people would agree with that. Like, you need to hit on mid-round offensive linemen. Most good teams have several offensive linemen that were mid-round picks on their team that ended up being good players. Like, go look at the Browns, Miles Teller. There's so many guys on that team that were not supposed to be that great, but they ended up being great because of good coaching and they had good players around them. The Giants need to hit in the mid-rounds. They have been an absolute graveyard team in the mid-rounds. That's been the big problem with them the last couple of seasons, that their 3rd and 4th round picks have been abysmal. The last 2 years, it seems like it's getting better. I do like Aaron Robinson a lot. I like Darnay Holmes. I thought he was playing really well before he got injured. But ultimately, Anthony, when you're looking at this team, those 2 first round picks are big, but I just want to hit on Daniel Jones for one last moment here. As Adam Schefter said, Daniel Jones, the team still seems to have faith in him, but I'm losing the faith because I just haven't seen enough good play. I think that he's running out of time, right? This team is not going to be ready for him next year, even if you have an offensive line that's pieced together. People are expecting this offensive line then to draft Evan Neal or draft Ike Mekwonu. They draft these guys. They're going to be rookie offensive linemen, guys. Rookies. Andrew Thomas, think about his rookie season. He was a disaster. His second season, he came around. But by the time that happens, Daniel Jones is already going to be into his 5th year, and they may decline that this offseason. They cannot depend on rookie offensive linemen to lead this team and lead this offensive line and fix and solve positions. That is a huge gamble you're making. The Giants need to look at this as the first step in a rebuild, and they have to look beyond Daniel Jones. They have to see Daniel Jones, like, can we afford to pay him? Can we have confidence in him? And honestly, the way the Giants are talking right now, it seems like they're gonna, if they have that much faith, they're gonna pick up his 5th-year option, and we're gonna be like, that's a huge risk. That's a huge
Please
risk. And
don't
I know
do it.
we've been positive. We've been
Do
positive.
not do that. I can't.
Yeah, I don't want that either. And look, we've been positive about Daniel Jones in the past, and it was in the first half of the season because we wanted to see the evaluation. In the second half, we wanted to see Andrew Thomas get back because he was injured at the time that we were saying good things. We wanted to see Kadarius Toney get back, Kenny Galladay, Saquon Barkley was still out. There was so many injuries. We were like, we just want to see this offense as a whole and see if they can move forward and do some good things. Instead, everybody got injured again. It's Daniel Jones, of course, out for the rest of the year. You know, you have Kenny Galladay still struggling. You have Saquon Barkley still dealing with the ankle injury. Kadarius Toney, oblique, a COVID. He has everything. He has a freaking medley of injury. So honestly, Sterling Shepard, torn Achilles now. this team is a mess, right? The injury bug is, and by the way, I'm starting to hate the term injury bug because it's not the injury bug bit them. It's the freaking injury, like Pantheon is strangling them because they've just been absolutely hammered every year. The same players are always the ones that are getting re-injured over and over and over again. And Dave Gettleman said, injured players stay injured. And another lie to us because he went out and signed Kenny Galladay and drafted whoever, like so many injuries. It's ridiculous. But Anthony, like, what is your last thoughts on Daniel Jones? Because I don't want to go down that rabbit hole right now.
Listen, I wish that Daniel Jones' season went differently. I wish he had the full 16 games. Wish he had a good offensive coordinator. Wish he didn't have all the injuries on his skill position players surrounding him. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. It did not go the way we wanted it to go. I wanted to see Daniel Jones have a successful season and establish himself as a franchise quarterback, but it just did not happen. So no, we can't pick up his fifth-year option because there are way too many question marks and there are way too many things about Daniel Jones that we don't feel confident in. If we were to pick up his fifth-year option, that would be saying, Daniel Jones, we are confident in you. We believe you will be the long-term successful franchise quarterback for this team. I don't feel that way. I don't think anyone in the fan base feels that way and feels comfortable enough to give up $22 million guaranteed for a fifth-year option. There's just no way that the Giants can do that. Especially, like I said, league scouts and executives are saying that the Giants need a quarterback this offseason. Everyone is certain that Daniel Jones is not the guy except for the New York Giants. That says a lot about the Giants, and it really just, it's not good. That is a not good thing to say about the New York Giants. And again, I wanted to see him succeed. He's probably going to be the starter in 2022 unless they go for a Russell Wilson. That's really the likelihood is they're not going to draft a quarterback. They might trade for one, but likelihood is Daniel Jones is going to be the starter next year. I hope he succeeds. I hope he crushes it, has a record-breaking season, and establishes himself as one of the best quarterbacks ever, right? That's what I want to see. But what will I see? Probably a stopgap Daniel Jones. And that's unfortunate, but going forward, I'm okay with him being the quarterback another year. It's a short leash. He has another year to prove himself because this really isn't the year for the Giants to go get a quarterback. There's not that many good quarterbacks coming out in the draft. This just isn't the year. So if Daniel Jones gets another year, I'm excited. I'm happy. I want to watch him play. I hope he's successful. But that doesn't mean that I'm so confident that he's going to get a fifth, sixth, and seventh season with his team. I don't want to pick up that fifth-year option because we can go into next season. Maybe everybody's healthy. We got all the playmakers around him, and the offense still sucks, and they still can't throw the ball, and Daniel Jones is still terrible. Then what are you going to do? You're still going to have the $22 million fifth-year option? You just can't do it. You gotta just plan to move on. Not saying you have to move on from Daniel Jones this offseason, but you have to be prepared to move on after one more bad year. And I hope it's a good year, but likelihood is that it's going to be a bad year. So for Daniel Jones, really hopeful about him, but I just don't see the long-term success there. It's no guarantee, and I think the Giants should start planning accordingly.
Yeah, and for the record, we all want Daniel Jones to succeed, right? That would take a lot of stress off our shoulders if Daniel Jones ended up being our franchise quarterback, because then you can use those draft picks on more players to build around him. But we just haven't seen that so far. Hopefully, he can dominate next year. It seems like he's going to be our quarterback. We're going to tool up. I heavily expect that we're going to be looking at 2023 for quarterbacks. Man, if we can land Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, whoever it might be, that'd be great. But, of course, we're going to have to be pretty damn bad next year for that to happen. Another year of misery. And honestly, I'd rather just win games at this point. So hopefully we can turn things around. Whoever the new GM is can figure things out because we're definitely in a bad spot. And, if the Giants do keep Joe Judge and they fire Dave Gettleman, it's a pretty clear indication they think that Joe Judge had it a little bit better figured out, because otherwise I think they would just fire both at the same time and hit the restart button. Clearly they have some sort of faith if they've seen something in Joe Judge that's made them excited about the future. But ultimately, I don't think that the moral compass or the talent compass of the Maras at this point can be trusted. So whatever they're seeing, probably the opposite of that is going to be successful. But guys, hope you enjoyed this episode talking about Abrams, Jones, couple stuff about the front office. But I hope you guys have a fantastic Christmas. Please enjoy with family and friends. I'm not able to, so hopefully you guys are, sending some positive energy and love to you guys. Hopefully you guys stay healthy and safe as well. But hopefully you enjoyed the episode, and we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Giants episode.